Welcome to the earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
And we're streaming live on YouTube, X, and Twitch, I hope. In theory. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. I have a moment right before I start every show. Because no kidding, I start preparing for the next show as soon as I sign off from the last show. I'm not kidding. It's like an obsession. I start taking notes, crafting new ideas from the time I end all the way up to when I begin. And that's exactly what I was doing the last 2 minutes while the intro video was running. Because I saw Snow White last night because I have children. And I was very apprehensive because, of course, like you, I'm sure, heard all of the propaganda, the right-wing propaganda, that's right, coming down about Snow White and about how terrible Rachel Ziegler is. What kind of Latino last name is Ziegler? Sounds German to me. Don't get me started. My first issue is that the previews, and I don't know actually if we got, because the previews were running when we got there. I'm pretty sure we were on time. But the previews were all, I mean, if I did actually see all of them, were all for remakes of ideas that had already been done before. It was Minecraft, which I'm excited to see because I love Jack Black. Lilo and Stitch live action remake, and How to Train Your Dragon live action remake. And I know I rage about this all the time, but it's because I'm tired of no one investing in new ideas. Why can't we have new ideas? I mean, I guess it's because the massive media companies worth billions of dollars can't take a chance on a unique idea because we must have guaranteed return. But then people tell me all the time, oh, Hollywood is failing. I hear it all the time. Revenues are down. Disney's losing billions of dollars on their stock price. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because they're getting a little outrageous with the woke business. And people don't want their children being exposed to that kind of stuff before they're ready. I get it. Who knows when your child is ready to learn about woke things? I'm certainly not looking forward to them coming home from school and asking me about something crazy. But it's bound to happen. I don't know if it's avoidable. How hard are we going to work as parents to protect our children from these things when we don't really have a lot of control over it to begin with, and even less and less control as they get older? I know personally, I can separate my hatred of the person from the art that they create. And Rachel Ziegler killed it as Snow White. Her voice was incredible. You watch the movie for 5 minutes and you realize why they cast her. Maybe 10% of the reason was that she was Latino. And who really cares? Like, can we just be honest with each other? Do you really care? I mean, Snow White was her name, not her description. You know, whatever. Maybe skin is pure as snow or whatever was in the original that we watched for about 10 minutes to get hyped. This was my idea. Hey, girls, we'll put on the 1937 original version of Snow White. And it just takes me back to my dad trying to show me things that he thought was cool when I was a kid and thinking, ugh, gross, Dad, it's in black and white. The picture looks all grainy. This is stupid. I can't be bothered to spend my time looking at these things when there's so many more beautiful, shiny objects to have my attention. I really feel like all of the outrage about Rachel Ziegler and her political affiliations and beliefs, which, by the way, where do those come from? How old is Rachel Ziegler? Has she even been on this planet long enough to form an actual uniquely political opinion that is her own? And I ask the internet. 23. How stupid were you when you were 23? I was pretty stupid. And I think that's when my wife met me and agreed to get together. So she was obviously pretty stupid when she was 23 too. Ha ha. I really believe that Rachel Ziegler is surrounded by people that are influencing her opinion, just like everyone else in Hollywood is surrounded by people that want to influence her opinion. We know how this works on the left. Going all the way back to Joseph Goebbels in Nazi Germany. Secretary of Propaganda. We're supposed to trust all of these Hollywood actors because of the characters that they've played in movies. So that the people pulling the strings, the billionaires, infecting the culture with propaganda, can push them out in front of the media and say, this is your opinion on Hamas and Palestine and the conflict going on in Israel. Gal Gadot, I don't know if you're supposed to hit the T. Is it Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot? I think I've definitely heard it pronounced both ways, but I think she hits the T lightly at the end of her last name. There was a feud, or at least a media manufactured feud, between Rachel Ziegler and Gal Gadot that resulted in Gal not being invited to something that Rachel was doing after the movie premiered. And of course, this was caused or brought on by their differences in political views based on the Israeli conflict with Gaza and Hamas. Of course, Rachel Ziegler wants to free Palestine, and Gal Gadot is Israeli and doesn't want to free Palestine. But isn't it weird how that's kind of the polarity of the argument? You either are in favor of a free Palestine or you're in favor of an imprisoned Palestine. Because that's the unbiased media for you. You're on one side of the issue or you're on the other side of the issue. And the same thing is happening with right-wing propaganda as well as it pertains to Snow White and other issues that we're going to get into. There was nothing woke that I could detect about the Snow White movie. I think it's a step in the right direction for Disney, and the quicker they can repair their reputation, the better. Because I'm really tired of worrying about what my kids are going to see coming from Disney. And not just Disney, Netflix and Paramount and Hulu and everyone that is, all of the production studios that are susceptible to the corruption coming from the globalist elite that wants to destroy the last truly free civilization on the planet. If the politics of the actors bothers you, stay home. There was nothing immediately offensive in the film aside from a little feel-good communism. Like, oh, the people are hungry, we should give them food. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want hungry people to not be hungry? I don't think anybody should be starving. Does that make me a communist? I don't think so. It's a much bigger issue than that because so many different things contribute to someone being homeless on the streets or, decrepit and starving in the ditch. But on the topic of right-wing propaganda, the the thing creating the biggest outrage this weekend is what we actually talked about a few weeks ago. It's making a comeback in the media. The Trump administration wants to take away the ability to buy soda using food stamps. So Big Soda is paying influencers to post about food freedom on X. And it's right-wing influencers. Because they just don't want to go hungry, folks. Let them post a little bit of propaganda to make a few bucks from Coca-Cola and Pepsi, who are probably owned by the same company. I'm a big fan. As I've mentioned before, I don't think you should be buying processed foods that are unhealthy for you, soda pop, candy, junk food. I don't think you should Doritos. I don't think you should be buying any of that stuff, even with your own money. However, if it's not your own money, if you're receiving assistance from the state via my tax dollars, I think what you're allowed to buy should be scrutinized. I say when you have your own money to spend on groceries, you can decide how to spend it. When my tax money pays for your groceries, I get to decide in part. Because what? I contribute 1/330th millionth to the tax pool. But I'm not the only one. Not only is the lobbying effort from Big Soda creating a stir, but the influencers, the right-wing influencers selling out and creating these scripted posts in favor of what they call food freedom is also creating an outrage and causing a rift amongst Trump-aligned accounts and pundits and influencers. And it's completely disingenuous. That's the most nauseating thing. If you just take a minute to think about the issue, you can quickly come to a conclusion that isn't, yes, these people below the poverty line that require state assistance shouldn't be purchasing things that are, for all intents and purposes, a waste of their money anyway. There's no nutritional value in Diet Coke. All right? Be realistic. I say send them a box of food. I mean, that takes even more pressure off of them, does it not? Here's your box of government cheese and government chicken and government vegetables from local farms that we already subsidize. What is really happening here is Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all of the junk food companies' attempts at being subsidized further by the federal government through the food stamp program. If you don't like it, if you don't like that you can go spend $30 at 7-Eleven buying a bunch of their bullshit, then consider this an incentive to pull your own weight. We've reached what? An inflection point in the United States economy. And we're going to talk about that a lot more as the show goes on. But I saw a video about Dr. Fauci and remdesivir. And I'll play this video for you before I go on.
I warned the world that there is an experimental drug called remdesivir that will be responsible for their death. Yeah, I explained the entire way in which everyone with COVID-19 being diagnosed in the hospital, how they died between day 1 and day 9. Everybody died on day 9 of a 10-day treatment with remdesivir. Yeah, they called it an antiviral drug. Dr. Anthony Fauci claimed in May of 2020 it was found safe and effective in a drug trial in Africa a year earlier in 2019. And he hyperlinked the study in his memo to all hospitals. I happened to be retired. I opened the link to read the study about this drug I'd never heard of. And imagine my shock that in that trial in Africa a year before COVID, it killed 53% of all people they gave it to. And the safety board for the trial had suspended the use of remdesivir in that trial at month 6 and notified the funders that this drug is too deadly and too toxic. We're not using it anymore against Ebola patients. Guess who I discovered in that research study was the funder of that Ebola trial in Africa in 2019.
Oh.
Dr. Anthony Fauci and his department at the NIH.
Ah.
So he lied to the entire Congress, lied to the entire American people, and told you that the drug was found safe and effective against Ebola, when in fact the independent safety board deemed it too deadly, too toxic, and had pulled it from the trial. America should be furious.
Now, I found this to be really interesting because my first thoughts when I saw this video, as soon as Anthony Fauci's name was brought up, and never mind the deadliness of remdesivir, this has been litigated constantly in conservative media. Just like AZT was considered deadly during the AIDS epidemic, also perpetuated by Anthony Fauci. My first thought was, I am so tired of hearing about Anthony Fauci. And then I realized immediately, that's exactly how we're meant to feel. It's what they tried to do to us, what the media tried to do to us with the 2020 election. Oh, aren't you tired of hearing about it? Just move on. What difference at this point does it make? Shout out Hillary Clinton. That's what she said when they were grilling her about Benghazi. We're meant to forget all the evil that was done, because now we've got so many other things to talk about. Soda Pop and Snow White and Elon Musk and Nazis. We're meant to forget all the evil that was done by this man so that there is minimum public pressure to hold him accountable. And we really can't do that, because people died alone in the hospital without their families because of the evil Anthony Fauci perpetuated on this country. And for what? For what gain? I hope we find out, because it doesn't seem like Donald Trump is going to let this guy get away with it.
Are those executive orders, those pardons from the president now null and void?
Well, I think so. It's not my decision. That'll be up to a court. But I would say that they're null and void, because I'm sure Biden didn't have any idea that it was taking place. And somebody was using an auto pen to sign off and to give pardons to, as an example, it's just one example, but the J6 Unselect Committee, they gave, think of it, they gave pardons with an auto pen. I don't think Biden knew anything about it. And what they did is they deleted and destroyed all of the information that took them over a year to get.
So this reporter is asking Donald Trump on Air Force One, it looks like while he's on his way into the bathroom, I could be wrong, about the pardons that Joe Biden signed with an auto pen. Now Donald Trump is saying he considers them to be null and void because he doesn't think that Joe Biden was actually with it enough to know what was going on. So Trump thinks that he may have a legal path to rescinding these executive orders. Now, check this out.
It's not just that he signed it with an auto pen. It's that the auto pen isn't his signature either. These are
You gotta check out the video for this portion. If you're listening to the audio when you get home, go pull up this video. I'll repost it right now. Go to @earthvox on X and you can see it in my feed. You have to see the comparison of these signatures.
for the auto pen. That one is his real signature. Took me a long time to figure it out because the bottom one, his real signature, looks like Joel. And that one is clearly like not even the same B. None of that. So I was like, that's not even his signature. But do you know whose signature it is? That's Jill Biden. Her B is different than his B.
The similarity is striking and damning, I would say. She describes Joe Biden's signature as looking like Joel because after he writes Joe, he draws the vertical line for the B and then swoops the rest of the B over the top to start Biden. Jill Biden's signature.
This is his B. Not attached. Two different strokes.
Writes a
the
B
B.
almost like an R.
This is her B. One stroke on her B.
And it's exactly the way
That's
Joe
the-
Biden's B's. Joe Biden's B in Biden looks exactly like Jill Biden's B in the auto pen application, but not in the documents that he's signed with his authentic signature.
Auto pen B. One stroke. That's Jill Biden signature on the auto pen.
It certainly looks like it could be. It certainly looks like it could be. Now, here's the article from Breitbart talking about this very thing and breaking it down in a little bit more detail. Report. Majority of Biden documents signed by auto pen signature raising eyebrows. And there it is. This ex post from the Oversight Project reads, whoever controlled the auto pen controlled the presidency. And remember, Jill Biden didn't want to let Joe go. Didn't want to let him retire. Didn't want Kamala to invoke the 25th Amendment. Jill Biden wanted to stay in power. It was pretty obvious. The post continues, we gathered every document we could find with Biden's signature over the course of his presidency. All used the same auto pen signature except for the announcement that the former president was dropping out of the race last year. And it shows all the signatures with that Jill Biden looking B. But then here is the signature from the letter announcing Biden was dropping out of the race. And it's what the previous video was calling Joe Biden's actual signature, with the B that's broken into two pieces, not the B that is one stroke, like Jill Biden's B. Libs of TikTok then posted breaking. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey asked the DOJ to investigate whether Biden's cognitive mental decline allowed unelected officials to make decisions without his knowledge or approval. If that's the case, Biden's executive orders, pardons, and other actions may be unconstitutional and void. The first thing that springs into my mind when I learn about this is, what is the media going to do? What is the media going to do? I thought I clicked that already. Sorry. Now you can see the tweets. We're doing great here, folks. If Donald Trump comes out and claims that everything that Joe Biden did over his presidency is void because it wasn't really his signature being applied to all of these documents and all of these executive orders, and most importantly, these pardons, the media is going to go crazy. And it will radicalize the far left even more against the good things that this administration is trying to do for the country. And then what are the judges going to say? The judges are going crazy. And John Roberts just rebuked Donald Trump for asserting that these rogue judges that are ruling unlawfully should be impeached. The headline from NBC News: Chief Justice pushes back against calls to impeach judges who rule against Trump. It's his fault that this is going on anyway. He's quoted in the article by Lawrence Hurley. For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that reason, Roberts said in the statement. And he's responding, of course, to Trump posting, "This judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached." Trump responded to Roberts during a Fox News interview that aired Tuesday night, saying many people have called for Boasberg's impeachment. Boasberg was the guy that said, "Turn that plane around. We want those violent Venezuelans back in our country." But that's not all. Pambani says we're going to do it anyway. And this is dangerous ground, folks. It's dangerous ground. Boasberg says, turn the plane around. Pam Bondi says, nah. From the Hill, Attorney General Pam Bondi said the Trump administration would, quote, absolutely continue to remove Venezuelan immigrants on deportation flights, despite a ruling from a federal judge ordering them to pause their efforts. Quote, these are foreign terrorists that the president has identified and designated them as such, and we will continue to follow the Alien Enemies Act, Bondi said Monday on Fox News' Jesse Waters Primetime. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg on Saturday temporarily blocked President Trump from invoking the Alien Enemies Act, which would grant him the authority to detain and deport individuals of countries deemed foreign adversaries with little due process. Bondi ripped Boasberg for attempting to meddle in foreign affairs, and it's really crazy when you think about it. Why are these judges, whether legal or not, why are these judges trying to stop the things that Donald Trump is doing? Tell me in the comments or send an email to the real earthvox at protonmail.com. This post from Charlie Kirk at Charlie Kirk 11. Why 11? I wonder if he's been suspended 11 times, or I guess 10 times. He writes, now a district court judge ordering the U.S. military to continue enlisting mentally delusional transgender troops is justifying her ruling by quoting the musical Hamilton. We either have a presidency or we have a rule by 677 gavel-wielding dictators. The Supreme Court must put these judges in place. Well, the Supreme Court had the opportunity to do that, but instead declined to hear the case, empowering the lower court judges to continue obstructing the executive branch. Tanya Chutkin, you might remember that name. She was one of the New York judges prosecuting Trump. And now she's trying to stop us from getting our taxes back. This story from Politico: judge bars Trump's EPA from taking back $20 billion in climate grants. For now, a federal judge temporarily blocks the EPA's attempt to recoup $20 billion in Biden-era climate grants, dealing the latest judicial setback for President Donald Trump's attempt to assert unilateral control overspending. Now, I dug into this one a little bit. Tanya Chutkin, who respectably bowed out of the prosecution of Donald Trump as the evidence in the case came to light. She's basing her ruling on what's it called? The Administrative Procedures Act, which went through Congress. This basically says that unless Congress specifically acts against these climate grants going through, the executive branch doesn't have the authority to claw them back. So all that need happen is for Congress to go in and specifically say, we want this money back. And they better do that. And they better hurry up. I think this is one of the reasons that Trump always supported Speaker Mike Johnson in Congress, because he needs him to provide that stability and unity among the Republicans in Congress to get things like this done while they have a majority. Congress can make this happen, but they have to hurry, because the media is working nonstop to brainwash the public against what's happening right now and what needs to happen before the U.S. goes bankrupt. This is something that's strangely absent from all the reporting done on these actions by the Trump administration to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. They're not telling us why it needs to happen. It needs to happen because we've been spending money like crazy people in this country for literally years, and now we're about to go Greece and default on our debt and have a total economic and financial collapse. That's why this has to happen. That's why people have to not get their grants. That's why federal workers have to lose their jobs. I don't like it. It makes me upset. I want people to not go hungry, Snow Whites. I want them to be able to feed their families and make their car payments and their mortgage payments. But we've let this bullshit go on for too long. We've been contented to watch Monday Night Football and eat chicken wings instead of paying attention to what our politicians are doing and what they're spending our taxes on. And now we've reached critical mass. And the media is downplaying it. Why does the media want the U.S. to go bankrupt? Why do these judges want the U.S. to go bankrupt? What do they have to gain? I'm getting big time burn it down and rule over the ashes vibes. Are you willing to go along with that? Are you willing to follow the people who want that? Are you willing to keep voting them in? Because that's what's been going on. That's what the media and now these judges have been facilitating. This is what Nayib Bukele has to say on the matter. Get a little volume going here.
But jumping out of the water when it's already boiling is an almost impossible feat. You are not there yet. And believe me, you don't want to be. We did the unthinkable to cleanse our society. We arrested the terrorists, but we have to remove corrupt judges and corrupt attorneys and prosecutors.
Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, which was also teetering on the brink of collapse. Same with Argentina. Remember all of these horrible Nazi fascist dictators that were taking control of these countries? Giorgia Meloni in Italy, Javier Milei in Argentina, Nayib Bukele in El Salvador. The media was all unified in their message that these were terrible, horrible people. crushing the freedom of their citizens and attempting to become literally Hitler. I love that. That's one of my favorite things of this crazy culture. Literally Hitler, literally Hitler. I mean, who's Hitler? The people that are trying to create an authoritarian one world government where nobody's free, where you'll own nothing, but you'll somehow be happy. You'll be happy because we tell you that you're happy. And if you're not happy, then you'll just rot in prison. You'll work in a labor camp till the end of your days. Will ruin your life unless you go along with it. Why do these judges want this? I say impeach them and imprison them. Unless they agree to cooperate with the investigation. Unless they're willing to give up who they're working for. And who is it? Who's making these judges do this? They know they don't have the authority, but they do it anyway. And that's partly the fault of Chief Justice John Roberts, and I uncovered this crazy conspiracy theory. I'm hesitant to bring it up. But I do love my conspiracy theories. It revolves around this thing called the Inn of Courts. But there's not really a lot of supporting documentation here. The account is called Bad Kitty Unleashed. Maybe an attempt to steal some cat turd. Some cat turd followers. Ooh, I love cats that post conservative viewpoints on X. Bad Kitty Unleashed must be a good follow. It's at Pepe's grandma. They write, oh, I got all the way to the bottom somehow. Breaking expose. 5 anti-Trump judges are involved in a secretive, invite-only club for judges and lawyers called the American Inn of Courts. Even the membership and meetings are secret. But somehow, the DOJ has shown up at meetings, at least since Biden had been in office. Is hobnobbing with the DOJ in court matters acceptable, let alone meeting in secret? So who all is linked to this selective and secretive club? And recall all of their negative Trump rulings? Judge James Boasberg, he said bring the terrorists back. SCOTUS Ketanji Brown Jackson is the vice president of this club, Boasberg being the president. Judge Amit Mata, secretary. And the meetings are actually held at her court. Judge Beryl Howell, she's the justice that won, or no, Ketanji Brown Jackson won the professionalism award. I learned this through my deeper investigations. And Justice John Roberts, also a member of this secretive club. The reason that I don't really feel that it's appropriate to dig deep into this is because we're talking about a club that's so secretive. Okay, well then, if it's so secretive, Bad Kitty Unleashed, with all due respect, how did you find out about it? And I have to say the coincidence keeps me very skeptical that it's 3 judges included in this super secret judge club that happened to be, I mean, it's almost like they threw in the other one just as kind of a distraction. Like, oh yeah, this one, I mean, she's not popping up very much. I'm sure she's there. Maybe we ask Grok. Has Judge Amit Mata blocked the Trump administration? Come on. Sausage fingers. Type it better. Oh, I forgot to say fewer words. Let's say in 10 words or less, please. No, Judge Mata hasn't blocked Trump admin. Just specific cases. a short list of specific cases. Mazar's subpoena upheld Congress's access to Trump's financial records. Okay. January 6 lawsuits allowed civil suits against Trump to proceed. Diversity visa case ordered resumption of visa processing in 2020. Drug pricing rule in 2019 blocked rule on drug price disclosure in ads. So 3 of those happened during the Trump administration. The Jan 6 lawsuits were in 2022. But don't you find it interesting? Not to get back into the ongoing saga of Grok's bias tendencies, but I find, and I would encourage you to do this as well if you're searching for answers using what they call an artificial intelligence, which is really just a large language model. You got to press. You got to press on it sometimes, because when you do, especially if you say, I asked this, I learned this, but when I asked you, you said this, then it comes back and goes, oh, you're right, my bad. Sus. Very sus. And I don't like it. Nevertheless, this doesn't mean I'm jumping in on this judge is definitely part of a secret society that is working to obstruct the Trump administration. There's plenty more real life things to be concerned with, even though I love the conspiracy theories. I would love to learn that it's true, especially because I learned that George Soros is contributing a lot financially to not just this American Inn of Courts that these judges are members of, but also many other societies or clubs that entertain a lot of judges and justices. Many billionaires. I gotta ask now. I know Soros is one. Let's clear this. What notable people are known to contribute to the American Inn of Courts? And this whole Inn of Courts thing is also it's like a mirror of a similar sort of organization or organizations that exist in the UK. And I've heard a lot of conspiracy theories that talk about how the UK and the Crown, more appropriately, is very involved and sort of entwined in the American legal system and what happens and what sort of rulings and what sort of appeals go on in the country. But that's a whole show for another podcast and probably another podcaster. I don't see in this list any very notable contributors. Let's say, what about financial donors? It gets confused. From 2 posts and 6 web pages, and it's not naming any of the people. So we best move on. But you can trust that I learned George Soros was involved, and you must be not very surprised to learn about this, because it's the same names that come up time after time. These people trying to influence the culture of the United States to its detriment. We know George Soros was financing the campaigns of wacko leftist DAs that wouldn't process any crime, and we're finally coming out of that. And it really feels like it's the last gasp of the left, of the real fascists, of the globalist authoritarians, now using these judges to try and obstruct the agenda of the Trump administration the Trump administration, of which we voted pretty heavily in support of. Now, a month ago, another judge blocked Trump's efforts to end birthright citizenship. And this was very controversial. I don't know that a lot of Americans would fully embrace this policy. This headline from the AP: fourth federal judge blocks Trump's birthright citizenship order. A federal judge in Boston on Thursday blocked an executive order from President Donald Trump that would end birthright citizenship for the children of parents who are in the U.S. illegally, becoming the fourth judge to do so. The ruling from U.S. District Judge Leo Sorokin, or Sorokin, Soroskin, right? Am I right? Came 3 days after U.S. District Judge Joseph LaPlante in New Hampshire blocked the executive order, and follows similar rulings in Seattle and Maryland. This means it's going up to the Supreme Court. Yes, it is. It's going up to the Supreme Court. And then what is going to happen? Is John Roberts going to say, it's fine. Don't even worry about it. We're going to go, you know what? You're a judge. You're more powerful than the president. You have more authority. This is not how it works. It's co-equal. It's co-equal branches of government. This branch has the authority to do this. This branch has the authority to do that. And the third branch, yep, they got the authority to do that. Now, birthright citizenship, it's been a sensitive topic. Trump wants to get rid of it. And it's hard to decide how I feel about that. Because it's going to get murky really fast when you start breaking down all the individual components of what contributes to birthright citizenship. And more appropriately, whatever kind of citizenship we're going to have if Trump gets rid of it. Now, I don't know how you feel about it, but if you don't want to end birthright citizenship, how would you go about combating this story that I just learned about, I think yesterday? And I didn't actually watch this video. I was more concerned with the text. So I'll read you the text and then we'll play the video and see how it goes. From @WallStreetApes. China's rent a womb. A womb. Like, you know, the real ladies have. Exposed. Motels full of pregnant women discovered in California. Quote, Chinese couples are hiring American surrogates and having them give birth to their kids in America. Then the Chinese couple comes over after the birth and takes the kid back to China with a U.S. passport. It's happened tens of thousands of times across the United States. All right, let's watch the video.
The Chinese have a new way of creating U.S. citizens for their intelligence services and their military. It's dangerous. Chinese couples are hiring American surrogates and having them give birth to their kids in America. Then the Chinese couple comes over after the birth and takes the kid back to China with a U.S. passport. In the 2000s, everybody talked about pregnant women coming to America on tourist visas and then giving birth in the United States to a child with automatic American citizenship. It was called birth tourism. Now the Chinese families are taking it a step further. In the words of Brian Entin, renting a womb. News Nation senior correspondent Brian Entin is with us now for his exclusive reporting. Brian, is this a one-off thing or is this actually happening at scale?
No, it's happened tens of thousands of times across the United States. We learned when we went out to California, Leland. We went out to look into the birth tourism scheme because there's been a lot of recent busts involving the feds, even though it's been going on for a long time. And they've sort of got that under control, and it's against the law because these women overstay their visas. They come on a tourist visa, they stay, they have the baby, and then they go back to China. But while we were in California, we learned about this new rent-a-womb scheme, which is almost more alarming because it is not illegal. It's a loophole. This is actually one of the motels that we went into where some of the pregnant women stay. And basically with the rent-a-wombs, you've got these parents in China who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's happening thousands of times. And they pay a woman in America that has the sperm and the egg from China inside of them. They use the American womb. The American woman gives birth to the Chinese baby. And then the baby gets the U.S. passport, but immediately goes back to China with no allegiance whatsoever to America, but is an American citizen.
Cunning. It goes back to what I've been saying many, many times on this podcast. Our enemies have studied our documents. They've studied our laws. They've studied our legal and economic systems, and they have learned how to exploit us and how to hurt us. They found all the holes in the legal system and are exploiting each one of them to facilitate the downfall of the last free civilization on the planet. So if you're not for birthright citizen, if you're in favor of birthright citizenship, how would you stop this from happening? I know. Stop all immigration from China. Embargo on China. Boy, this is one of the things that we want to actually, no joke. This is one of the reasons that we want artificial intelligence and quantum computing, so that we can ask computers these questions. What would happen if we did this? And with the tremendous computing power available, we can learn how likely certain outcomes would be based on certain policies. I think a travel ban and an embargo on China would be pretty catastrophic for both countries. But how do you respond to the things that China is doing to this country? What can you say? Well, just don't do it again. We trust you. It's one of the things that bothered me with that Disney movie Raya, which I think I've talked about before. The relationship between these two girls, two of the main characters, one good, one bad, is the bad guy girl stabs her friend Raya, the main character, in the back time after time after time. Even though Raya keeps saying, "Okay, I trust you. Okay, I trust you. Okay, I trust you. Go ahead, and I'm gonna forgive the wrongs that you've done. I'm gonna forgive your betrayals, and I'm gonna keep doing that no matter how many times you knife me in the back." I found myself watching this movie going, what kind of message is that? I'll keep forgiving you and trusting you and allowing you to stab me in the back time after time? I am sure that the Chinese Communist Party loves injecting that message into the cultural narrative. Don't hold people accountable. Forgive and forget and be betrayed again. I feel like that's what China is doing to us. I really do. And now we have judges, probably at the behest of Chinese Communist Party agents and others, working to stab us in the back again and again and again. 4 judges, at least, in that article, are obstructing Trump's ability to do what we all voted for him to do. But not all judges are bad. Are you still there? Are you sticking with me? Because we got some good news. New York's Supreme Court. What is this? I don't want. Oh, come on. Is this for real? You know what? I think I can beat this. Or I'll pull it up on my I'll pull it up on my phone. I've got, if you're, well, here, I'll share it with you so you can see. I've got this ad forcing me to read or forcing me to pay or become a member. I can get 1 free article from law.com every 30 days, as long as I register and give them my information now. It's the old bait and switch. Well, in New York, I'm sure I can find a different article. I don't know if I want to spend the time to do so because, let's see. I'm going to do it anyway. New York court blocks non-citizens from voting. Oh, come on. Let's just go. We'll go to CNN. FUlaw.com. New York's top court blocks New York City from letting non-citizens vote. I went law.com for that article because I didn't want to use CNN, but here I am using CNN because it's free. From the article, New York State's top court put an end Thursday to New York City's effort to empower non-citizens to vote in municipal elections. I don't think that part is accurate. The municipal elections part, because they already allowed that to happen. They were already allowed to vote in local elections. In a 6-1 ruling, the High Court said the New York Constitution as it stands today draws a firm line restricting voting to citizens. A judge ruled. Multiple judges ruled that this was the case. This is a win. This is a win. On top of that, Fani Willis ordered to pay a big fine for her rights violations in the Trump case. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, good old Fani, big old black Fani, has been ordered to pay over $54,000 in attorney's fees for violating Georgia's Open Records Act, according to court documents. This wasn't even for Donald Trump. This was for one of the other people in the Trump orbit that was being persecuted for the same things that they were trying to get Trump for. And they do this because they want the people in the Trump orbit to flip and sell out Donald Trump to further their case, to further the prosecution's case. We saw this with Cassidy Hutchins and the crazy Trump grabbed the Secret Service around the neck and while they were driving the limo and said, "Take me to the Capitol. I'm joining the January 6th riots." Remember that? It was all made up. It was all made up, and it was all made up at the urging of Liz Cheney and her lawyers. This is another reason to get excited about Trump rescinding those pardons, because these very bad people may be held accountable. I think Trump needs to go arrest all of them and let them sit in jail. Have them sit in Guantanamo Bay while the judiciary decides if it's legal or not. More big news this week. Donald Trump has ended the Department of Education. And I checked with Grok. As of this morning, no judges have stepped up to block the shuttering of the Department of Education. A little bit from the article. President Donald Trump is expected to sign an executive order Thursday to close the education department, fulfilling a years-long pledge to dismantle the federal agency, the White House confirmed. Conservative pundits have wanted this for a long time. It's a bloated, wasteful government agency that benefits the American people in no capacity and probably hurts them. Trump will hold an event at the White House to sign the order directing Education Secretary Linda McMahon, that's Vince McMahon's wife from WWF/WWE, quote, to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return education authority to the states while continuing to ensure the effective and uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits on which Americans rely. He also mandated that the Department of Health and Human Services take over the, what would you call it? The nutrition schedule, maybe? For all the schools. To start giving them healthy, nutritious food and not processed crap filled with poisonous chemicals, as it is today. Another W. And as I said, so far, no judges have stepped up to try and block this from happening, but there's still time. There's still time. And why wouldn't they step in and say, nope, you got to open it up. You got to open it back up. You got to bring all the people back. I mean, that's what they're doing now. That's what they're doing now with the other firings of federal workers. And it's bittersweet for me. I love the idea of getting rid of these meddling agencies populated by leftist extremists that are wasting our tax dollars and destroying our country at the same time. But I also can't just generalize that everyone in these agencies was an extreme leftist working towards the downfall of America. I don't like the idea of tens of thousands of people being without their jobs that they may have been good at. I mean, look, if they were bad at their jobs, if they should have been blowing the whistle on government waste, great, get rid of them. But I have a really hard time believing that it was all of these people. Anyway, there's still time. There's still time for the judges to continue obstructing everything that Trump wants to do to the benefit of the country. A few death threats. That's all it takes to get a judge to bend over and facilitate the destruction of the country. But, maybe that's why everything's moving so fast. There's a finite number of billionaires working towards the downfall of America. They can only bribe and threaten so fast. And they've been spending a lot of time trying to destroy Elon Musk in the last week. And remember when the director of Biden's FBI, which was actually the director of Trump's FBI, unfortunately. It's an L for the Donald. When Christopher Wray said domestic terrorism was the biggest problem, it was like domestic terrorism and white supremacy. And we were all aghast because we knew he's talking about us. He's talking about the Biden admin's political opponents and people that came to the rally that day in January on, 2021. But it sure looks like domestic terrorism really is the biggest problem in the country. Does it not? I asked Grok, since the beginning of the year, how many attacks have there been against Elon Musk and his businesses? He gave me a long, it's weird. He gave me a long, generalized answer. Since the beginning of 2025, there have been numerous reported attacks on Elon Musk's businesses, particularly Tesla. Tesla attacks. Reports indicate at least 12 distinct attacks on Tesla. There was an attack on SpaceX that was largely unreported, but described as mysterious. There was a big-time cyber attack on X you probably heard about. Happened on the 10th. Grok describes it. Elon Musk reported a, quote, massive cyber attack on X with outages affecting tens of thousands of users globally. He attributed, and it wasn't just X. I think it was Rumble and, it was X, Rumble, and another one that's escaping me at the moment. But I wasn't, to put a button on it, I wasn't satisfied. So I asked Grok to give me a short list with details. January 2025, at a Tesla Gigafactory, a fire broke out in Nevada, suspected to be arson, and they found Molotov cocktails. Another Tesla showroom shooting in January. Gunfire targeted a Tesla showroom. Location unspecified, possibly California. Big shocker there. They've been vandalizing the superchargers. An arson attack on a Seattle Tesla facility. We covered the bombing in Las Vegas outside a Trump hotel. They're contributing that to Elon Musk. I would say that's more like an attack on Trump. But it really painted a cultural picture, didn't it? Cybertruck blowing up in front of Trump hotel. These are the bad guys. Everybody put it all over the news. Tesla bad, Trump bad. Now we can hate on both of them. Because why? They're trying to save the country, and we can't have that. We have to destroy the last free society on the planet. The SpaceX rocket explosion happened March 7th, 2025. And then the cyber attack on X. A large-scale cyber attack disrupted X, causing outages for tens of thousands of users worldwide. Musk blamed a coordinated effort with IP ties to Ukraine. Of course, this can all be fabricated. That's not evidence that it's actually Ukraine that did it. But it's suspicious. And of course, Ukraine would have motivations to attack Elon Musk and Donald Trump. He's very upset, and I'm hearing now that he's demanding membership in NATO. See how that works out for him. Donald Trump strikes me as the kind of guy that doesn't view demands kindly, especially when the gratitude isn't even evident. But I think I know where this extremism is coming from. And I've been excited, so excited, to bring this up to you because I played this video on a version of this podcast a long time ago. And it was actually pretty strangely difficult to find this time. Let's take a listen.
Over here, we have individuals who are religious fundamentalists, religious fanatics. And this is the expression, RT-PCR, real-time PCR expression of the VMAT2 gene.
So PCR like PCR test, like COVID test.
Over here, we have individuals. So let me complete. So over here, we have individuals who are not particularly fundamentalist, not particularly religious, and you can see there's a much reduced expression of this particular gene, the VMAT2 gene. Another evidence that supports our hypothesis for the development of this approach. What you see
here is by spreading this virus, we're going to eliminate individuals from donning on a bomb vest and going into a market and blowing up the market.
So our hypothesis is that these are fanatical people, that they have overexpression of the VMAT2 gene, and that by vaccinating them against this, we'll eliminate this behavior. So we have some very, very remarkable data in this next slide. Here we have two brain scans. These are fMRIs. These are two different individuals with different levels of expression of VMAT2. On top is an individual who's a religious fanatic, an individual, and we've repeated this numerous times, that has high levels of VMAT2. Now, this individual down here who had low levels of the VMAT2 gene, this individual would self-describe as not particularly religious.
If you're listening to the audio, he's showing brain scans and claiming that this is an indication of the presence or the increased presence of these VMAT2 genes and correlating them with someone who exhibits a lot of fundamental extremism. And he's attempting to sell to the DOD. Now, this was reported to be Bill Gates presenting to the Department of Defense. This isn't a Department of Defense presentation. And he's claiming that his organization has discovered a way to mitigate this VMAT2 gene to decrease extremism. Now, if this, I mean, he's selling it as like it's a vaccine or it's a virus. It's really coming. It's kind of giving me the vibe that it's whatever you want to call it to help yourself feel better about using it against populations. So if this vaccine or virus, however you'd like to look at it, is, quote, reducing extremism, wouldn't they also be able to create the reverse and expose people to something that would increase their extremism? Now, it's talking about fundamental extremism. So if it's meant to increase extremism, I mean, we're talking about a hypothetical development here, the inverse of what they're calling the fun vax to reduce extremism. If this is all hypothetical, talking about fundamentalist extremism and reducing. However, in my hypothesis, we're talking about the inverse, which would be much more useful, right? Because we know the intelligence apparatus, and this is being exposed every day as they track where funding for USAID goes and how USAID was going to non-governmental organizations run by people like George Soros to foment regime change in countries that weren't necessarily so friendly to the United States and wouldn't give access to the resources in their country to the United States. The most recent example is Ukraine in 2014. The United States sponsored Maidan coup, which undoubtedly got us to where we are today. So this is all hypothetical, but wouldn't it be smart to create a religion out of your politics? If you're seeking to create fundamental extremism in a country, you'd have to create the fundamentals. So how would you do this? By using the media and learning institutions to make a full-blown religion that we now refer to as wokeness. And then turn your political opponents into Satan or Hitler. And I think this is the biggest problem, that the religion of wokeness and the attempt to create extremists, fundamental extremists out of the followers of wokeness, they don't have a Jesus. Maybe it was Obama, but then Obama ruined his credibility with many leftists when he referred to the Very Fine People hoax towards the end of the 2024 campaign season. Repeated over and over again, Trump referred to neo-Nazis and white supremacists as very fine people. Maybe the most egregious lie told by the mainstream media in the last 10 years, and repeated over and over again. Because that's right out of Goebbels' propaganda handbook. If you repeat a lie enough times, people will just accept it as the truth. So, the biggest flaw in this plan to create fundamental extremists, hypothetically, of course, using this vaccine technology and to manipulate the VMAT2 gene. I mean, just think about it. If you could create a product that would reduce the VMAT2 gene, why couldn't you also create a product to increase the VMAT2 gene? You could create extremism in a country while you decrease extremism in another country. It's the reason that it's the way that they justify all of this gain of function research on these viruses, which is creating these pandemics. They say, oh, we got to find a cure. We got to find a cure for the extremism. We have the bug that creates the extremism. Now we got to figure out a cure for it. Isn't that a lot more believable? It is in my crazy mind. So you release the virus, follow it up with a vaccine that will manipulate your genes, and then you have a population of extremists. Now, how would they go about doing something like this, I wonder? Can you think of anything? Maybe something that happened in the last 5 years or so? I'm going to leave that right there and let you stew on it. An Obama federal judge is blocking DOJ from investigating fraud in Social Security. Why is he blocking an investigation into fraud? Why would you? We had McDonald's breakfast delivered to the house because we're ugly, obese Americans. And really, my wife wasn't feeling good. She caught whatever I had earlier in the week. So we DoorDashed. I'm ashamed to admit. And my daughter wanted pancakes. This time, they actually included syrup in the bag of all the food, which they didn't last time. I think we even got napkins too. Oh, the luxury. So we're sitting on the couch watching, I think we were watching 1937 Snow White, as a matter of fact. And I look over and my daughter is sucking the syrup out of a little hole in the the little foil cover that you peel off before you use it. Of course, we put a stop to it. We said, no, you can't eat. You can't just drink the syrup on its own. It's for putting on pancakes. It's not for, whatever. Go throw it away. She leaves the room and is gone for a suspiciously long time. And I made a joke to my wife, like, oh yeah, she walks around the corner and then she rips the top off and just guzzles the syrup before she has to throw it away. Then we're looking at each other like, where did she go? She had taken the syrup to her bedroom to consume at a later time. Clever little girl. So my wife asks her, did you take that syrup and hide it in your room? If I go in there and look, am I going to find this syrup? Do you want me to go in there and look? Oh, no. No. Because if I go in there and look, I'm going to find that you hid the syrup. That's why you don't want me to go in there and look. That's why this Obama federal judge isn't allowing DOJ to investigate the fraud in Social Security, because it's normal human behavior. It's not mysterious. People don't behave that much differently from one another. I mean, what do you think the wealth gap is between smoking meth in your single wide trailer with no plumbing and no electricity to Supreme Court justice? What are we talking about in dollar amounts? It's not huge. Do you think the people with the moral compass of the meth head in the single wide doesn't exist in the upper echelons of control in this country? No, the difference is that the justice, hypothetical justice, all right, hypothetical. The justice can afford to live in a nice house and smoke meth continually. And the guy in the Appalachian Mountains can't. That's why he lives in a single wide with no electricity and no plumbing. It's only fiscal. The difference is only economic. So why is he blocking DOJ from investigating fraud? Because he knows DOJ is going to find fraud. But is that judge guilty of Social Security fraud? Is he just protecting himself? It seems unlikely. So who is? And how do they have control over federal judges? I hope we find out. I hope we learn. Finally, Trump has revoked more security clearances and has written this, shared by @SteveGuest on X. I have determined that it is no longer in the national interest for the following individuals to access classified information. Antony Blinken, former Biden's Secretary of State, and the person largely responsible for the perpetuation of the Ukraine war. Jake Sullivan, Lisa Monaco, Mark Said, Norm Eisen, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Andy Weissman, Hillary Clinton, Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris, Adam Kinzinger, Fiona Hill, Alexander Vindman. Remember, he was the guy that leaked the conversation between Trump and Zelensky that led to his second impeachment. Joe Biden Jr., yeah, Joe Biden himself, and any other member of Joseph R. Biden Jr.'s family. Therefore, I hereby direct every executive department and agency head to take all additional action as necessary and consistent with existing law. Consistent with existing law to revoke any active security clearances held by the aforementioned individuals and to immediately rescind their access to classified information. I also direct all executive department and agency heads to revoke unescorted access to secure United States government facilities from these individuals. Oh, it feels so good. This is the retribution. And this is why Donald Trump stopped talking about retribution several months before the election. Because he knew it was only going to create problems for him. He knew it was going to give the media fodder to tell the public that he is literally Hitler. Because it's all they got left anymore. And it's so pathetic. They're so toast. They got to find their Jesus. That's really, I mean, that really needs to be their next move. Like if I try to, play chess with myself. If I were an evil scumbag leading the Democrats, what would I say needs to happen to get them back on track? Well, they got to find a Jesus. They got to find a Messiah, an anti-Messiah for their pathetic satanic movement. Because it's not enough. I mean, the other reason that they're failing is that they have no real moral framework. Their moral framework is whatever is the opposite of what this guy wants. Well, clearly it's not working. Because Donald Trump has the highest approval rate that he's ever had. Miserably pathetic losers they are. And let's be happy about it. Because despite what you might hear on the news, despite what people are saying, we're winning. And we're winning pretty handily. And it's pretty amazingly excellent, and you should be happy about it. I had a few more things to get into. It was more just in case I ran out of time, but despite my anxiety about not having enough to talk about, I still managed to do a almost 2-hour show. Hour 25. It just feels natural. I'm not upset about it at all. I feel like it went pretty good. We came off to a little bit of a slow start, I guess. It's, as I said, a product of me trying to get my mind right after dealing with all of the preparation, all of the technical difficulties, or thank God, lack of technical difficulties this morning, I mean. But I'm proud of this one. I hope you are too. I feel like maybe doing a solo show is what I ought to be doing. Let me know. Send me an email. Leave a comment. Like, share, and subscribe as usual. The email address is therealearthvox@protonmail.com. I am at earthvox on X, at earthvox on YouTube, at earthvox on Twitch. I'm earthvox on Steam. I'm earthvox on the PlayStation Network. I'm earthvox on Reddit. You can find me literally, well, I don't know about literally, but almost anywhere online. And I would love to hear from you, damn it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you'd like to hear about. Let me know what stories you think I should be covering that I'm not covering. Because I would love to hear about gaps in my coverage. Make sure you tune into this stream again next week, Sunday at 11 a.m. I'd appreciate it. And bring your friends. I'll be back.